Associate Dean Professor Vicky Bath. Then we welcome Mr. Yashoraj to this talk. Professor Vicky Bath, sir, sent his best regards to Yashoraj and also congratulates him on his success. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here himself, but he said that he's sure to watch the recording of the event. So with this, let's begin with a brief introduction about Mr. Yashoraj. So he is a BITS Goa electronics graduate and also was the CSA president in his third year. He went on to do his master's in behavioral finance in Haas School of Business. Presently, he works as the Chief Technology Officer of CASHe. Mr. Yashoraj will take us through his journey, after which he will answer questions put out by the audience in the Google form floated. We hope the session clears all your doubts and provides you with the right path to pursue your dreams. Now over to Mr. Yashoraj.
Thanks, Ritik. I believe there was some problem. Finally, it's great that we were able to resolve it and not really have to postpone it again. So yeah, good to be here. Always great to connect again with BITS Goa. I did do a talk around a couple of months ago with Wall Street, I think, on finance, and it's good to reconnect now. So it's pretty sad seeing that how people are not able to come back to campus and make the most of campus life right now. But we got to do with what best we can make of. So so again, thanks everyone for coming in. I hope I don't disappoint you guys on a Saturday evening. I'll try to tell you guys as much as I can about my journey, about whatever I've done. And hopefully that will be of some sort of help to you guys as well if you want to do something related to what I've been doing. So what I'll actually do is that since Vicky sir asked me to, I prepared a very short presentation as well, so that I'm just not speaking randomly off the top of my head, and I have some content to share as well. So just give me a second. I will probably share that screen as well. Just give me a second. All right, sure. So guys, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
All right, perfect. So, all right, just give me a second. Sure. So I'll just start with that. I just put out the picture out there because this picture is from March 2017. I remember that because I was in the library when this picture was taken, and one of my very close friends, we were studying for our final compre exam. It was my second last day on campus, and there's a lot of rain, so he just went out, and by chance when he was taking that picture, because he was very nostalgic about campus and all of that, at the same time there was this lightning strike or whatever, and he captured this picture. So it was really popular on campus during that time. So I'm just putting it out there because this is one of my favorite pictures of the campus as well. So yeah, so going ahead, I'll just tell a little bit about myself. I am 2013 A8PS 287G. I was A87229 and CH130 were my two homes during the 4 years I was there. 3 years in A87, 1 year in CH1. So shout out to anybody who's hearing this and isn't either of A87 or CH1. And what did I do after BITS? After BITS, I worked for almost 1.5 to 2 years as in a machine learning role in financial services. After that, because I got interested in that, I pursued my further career as a visiting researcher at UC Berkeley in behavioral finance. Then after that, I got even more interested in finance and financial engineering, and that's why I did masters in financial engineering from UC Berkeley. That was at a crucial point where I was deciding whether to do a financial engineering master's or whether to do an MBA. Chose to do financial engineering. Um, and then at that point of time I worked in quantitative modeling as well, on climate change, to quantitatively model climate change and measure impact of climate change on companies worldwide. What do I do right now? Right now, I am the CTO of CASHe. CASHe is a fintech lending services company, which is in the domain of short-term personal loans to people who actually cannot borrow from banks or do not borrow from banks, so that we can further the goal of financial inclusion in India. Um, so without further haste, I actually talk about a couple of things. Number one is that what did I exactly do in BITS, in terms of broadly in the 4 years that I was there, in terms of everything except academics, because you already know that I'm an A8, so I did everything that somebody in E&I would do. But besides that, whatever, or probably, I probably did not do a lot of things that somebody in E&I would do, although, doing those things is a good idea. But but that being said, coming to what I actually did in bits, in stuff beside academics, coming the first year, just like everybody, I got involved in everything out there: aerodynamics, ERC, waves, quark. Believe you probably definitely have aerodynamics and ERC clubs right now as well. So I was doing everything out there. And obviously, after the first semester, a lot of these things got cut down into, like, a couple of things that I actually ended up doing. At the end of my first year, beginning of second year, started something called the Technology Incubator Program. I don't know if it's still out there. I don't know if it's still pretty prominent, but it formed a big part of my second year in my life in bits in general, because obviously once you start something, that becomes very close to you, and that was something that really, really, kind of influenced me in a lot of ways about what I actually want to do in general post bits as well, in terms of how technically oriented I want to be. And so I put a lot of time and effort behind setting up TIP on campus. um, and then after that, I figured that this is something that really interests me, and I thought that probably to do this kind of stuff, to improve the technical culture of the college on a grander scale, I might have to be in the CSA. So that's why I became the CSA president after that, in my third year, with the same objective. And then finally, my fourth year was basically practice school and placements, and everything that people do when they get nostalgic in the last semester. So that was pretty much that happened in my 4 years. The key takeaways are, this is very important. I think that if somebody broke this down for me in my first year, I think I would have a lot more clarity if I actually listened. Number one is that I think your GPA definitely does matter. um, I'm not saying that somebody has to be a 9+ pointer. I'm not saying that you have to, like, be a stellar, like, A grades in all your courses. What I'm saying is that try to make it decent. That's what it is. I'm not one of those people who has had, like, absolutely incredible grades in all the courses. But if you make it decent enough, then you can balance it out with everything else. And decent is what everybody else out there is looking for. Because that's all that you need to manage. And if you can still do it, if you can still put some effort and put a little bit of stress on, just pushing your grades up there a little bit, that'll really help you. So decent is what I mean by when I say the GPA matters, because sometime at some place somebody is going to look at it, and they just want to see that, okay, you're not really horrible, like, you're just decent, and that's pretty much okay. Because what I can testify to the fact here is that there is definitely an increasing reputation and recognition of BITS Pilani in general, and people know how the grading system is like. People know it's very competitive, and they do understand that any certain GPA as to what it means when compared to any other college. So that you definitely come with that advantage. But that also means that people do know that what a low GPA in BITS is like. So it is extremely important for you to, like, understand that where you are, and probably make efforts to set it right. At the second time, I would also not say that extracurricular activities are not important. They absolutely are important in a way that they define you about who you are. They help you understand what you're really passionate about, what you really want to do. They help you bond with the class. And I think that a lot of stuff that I was involved in terms of life besides academics really helped me in that perspective. And That's absolutely critical, and I think that that's what BitSense also right lot of times in general in the MBA applications as well when they're applying with lesser years of work experience, that this is what they actually did in their 4 years in college and this is the leadership skills they had. So those things are also important. Other than that, I would say that people should try finding the niche and become good at it. There are some people really good with coding. There's some people who are really good at quant finance. Some people are really, really into core subjects like mechanical engineering in designing. So people should really try to figure out that what really interests them and try to become good at that. Um, uh, you know, and the reason why that is possible is because BITS gives you an enormous amount of flexibility in terms of what do you want to do with your career, right? What do you want to do in your 4 years? That is the amount of flexibility and freedom that is there is absolutely understated. Like, I don't think I have actually felt as free in my life as I felt during those 4 years. And that is actually true. You do that. You do feel like that. And it is absolutely critical that you don't waste that and make good use of that. Not just through classes, but like by developing your own skills, by figuring out productive use of time, making sure that you're putting your skills to right use and upskilling yourself all the time and making sure that every day is productive. So that is like very crucial. And at the end of the day, everybody should like just have fun also while you do that. So when I was I just while making that, I got reminded of the fact that when I was in my CS in my third year, and then I did this orientation speech to freshers. I put out this triangle that point of time that in bits you can basically choose one side of this triangle, and the two endpoints are what you actually end up getting. So either you do good grades and social life or enough sleep, or good grades and enough sleep. So you have to decide which side. Nothing is bad, but you will figure out at one point or the other that this is one of the sides is what you'll actually lie on, right? So I think I was more on the lines of social life and good grades because I think I hardly slept, but that's not a healthy living as well. But just saying that this is what you'll actually end up deciding between, right? And I would definitely say that you choose the side that ends with good grades, because that'll help you fare better in the rest of the class. Um, so I'm just going through this quickly because we started a bit late, and also the fact that I would like to make this more interactive later on through questions and stuff. Um, then after bits, I essentially worked in intersection of finance and data science for some period of time. I started my job as a data scientist. Even my campus placement was in data science, even though did not end up joining that, but I did end up joining another startup in the data sciences space in financial services, because you know that was not something that I initially thought that I will be interested in. Not till third year, I never knew that probably what data science is even about or what financial services are about. It was only in my fourth year that I ended up getting a better idea what I exactly want to do, and that is completely fine. I strongly recommend that that if people are not able to figure out what really interests them, it is as as it like it is as good if you are able to figure out what definitely does not interest you. Because I was somebody who used to think that something like management consulting was or the like would probably be of a lot of interest to me. But after my practice school, I figured that that is something I definitely don't want to do at this point of time. Not right now for sure, probably sometime later on, but not right now. So, and this was just my choice, right? I'm same for, I figure that marketing is not for me, for example. So if you eliminate options as well, that is also like good learning, right? You figure out eventually that what you want to do. So slowly I got interested in this entire domain of financial services and fintech, and I thought that right after BITS would be a good time to experiment. So that is the reason that straight after BITS, I actually went into a financial services fintech company, and I started working as a data analyst slash data scientist. One of the upsides of a smaller company is the fact that you work in a very lean team. So if you really put in the effort, you're really interested, your work really shows up. And I really, really, I think I put in quite a bit of effort at that point of time as well, because it was not just about doing good work, but it was as much about learning for me and as much about figuring if this actually interests me or not. And to figure out if something interests me or not, I can only figure that out by actually putting out as much effort as I can and see if I actually like the output or not. So I actually did, and I got a promotion to head of data scientist, the head of decision sciences for the firm as well. And by that point of time, I figured that my work was a lot about analyzing consumer data and use that to make quantitative models to predict credit defaults of portfolios. So this entire journey of using consumer insights at a individual consumer level and translating that into broad level consumer behavior is something that really started interesting me, and I thought that I might just want to do a master's or a PhD in that domain. Um, and for me to figure out that if this again really interests me, the only way for me to do that is to do some more analysis and research on that. So I applied to a lot of places, with UC Berkeley being my first choice of being visiting researcher, because UC Berkeley has quite some Nobel laureates coming in the domain of behavioral finance. And fortunately, I got accepted into that program, and I like went to UC Berkeley as a visiting researcher for a period of 4 to 5 months, where I did worked on a couple of research papers purely on behavioral finance and how it integrates to quantitative finance in general, about how you can use consumer data at scale and use it to make quantitative models. So I absolutely love that, and that is the reason why I actually applied to the Masters in Financial Engineering program at UC Berkeley. That is a point of time where I actually figured that I do not want to do an MBA, at least not at this point of time. I did have admits from a few MBA schools, but I did not choose to go down that path. Um, so I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2020, which is March this year. And since then, I've been working as CTO at CASHe, which I already told you about right in the beginning. So yeah, so that is like what I do currently, and this is like how my path has been structured around since my first year to what I've been doing right now. To give a few insights, very broad level insights on how somebody can break into finance or data science um, right after college, because I think that the way I can be a good example for anybody else is the fact that I'm not somebody who had a computer science or coding heavy background in college. I was coming more from a I would say like more from, obviously I did ENI, and I was coming I only at the later half of my college I actually started getting interested in these domains. I started picking up these skills, but I was not something who was heavily into these kind of things. Um, but so what obviously I naturally did was that I looked for smaller mid-sized firms, because not only, as I said, working in a lean team gives you a better growth curve, but it also helps you learn a lot more. The barriers to entry in these firms in a lot of times are pretty lower, because they would not have very long stretched heavy duty recruitment processes that are with strict cutoffs on, like, you should have done these ABC courses and only then we'll take you in. That's not how it is. Like, if you get your fundamental of statistics, linear algebra, and AI and machine learning on point, people do take you in for your knowledge of the subjects, rather than what experience you come up with from before. Um, so these are the things that generally make a lot of sense for anybody wanting to break into finance or data science right after uh, you know right after graduation. I think that for these kind of roles, it is very important to build a project-based resume. And how does that happen? That happens when you take up more competitions online, you take up more challenges in Kaggle, you try to do more projects on your own that you can showcase. Because even when I interview, or when I was interviewed, not just for my master's program, but also when I was applying for jobs, um, in more than, while people do want to know what your knowledge of fundamentals are like, people want to know that how much you can apply your skills. Um, and that is true for anything, as I said, jobs, masters programs, anything. Because if you apply for a job focused higher studies program as well, that's what they would look at. I was not applying to a research focused program, I was not applying for a PhD, right? So it doesn't matter about how much research I've done, it matters about how much application oriented stuff I can do. And that is why doing application oriented stuff and showing it on a resume becomes very fundamentally important. And that is actually true for anybody. A lot of my friends have been switching jobs as well. Like, there are people who have started off in software engineering jobs after BITS, and now they want to switch into data science. People who are like in completely different jobs as well, wanting to switch into finance and data science. People take up projects, people do competitions and do Kaggle challenges, and they put them on the resume and just go ahead and say that I might not come from this background, but I have a lot of interest in that. This is what I've done. So I'll be really keen to work for your company. And people do interview them, and I do that as well all the time. Um, speaking, Speaking specifically about quantitative finance, definitely take the quant finance minor. It was just started when I was there in my third year. A lot of people in my time couldn't take it, but it is a brilliant option for anybody wanted to do quantitative finance because, unfortunately or fortunately, quant finance companies in India, Southeast Asia, or for that matter anywhere else, I think are really focused on what is a pedigree. And by pedigree, they mean not just what is your GPA or what college you come from, but about what you have done there, like how much quant finance fundamentals you know. And obviously, one indicator of that they look at is if you have actually done relevant courses, relevant stuff. And it is not very common for people from engineering backgrounds to actually come with a quant finance minor. So if you actually do that, um, that gives you a good edge over anybody else applying for those companies for fresher level positions, right? And if you can't take that man, if you already passed that deadline, if you can take up those finance courses independently, please do that. I did that because I couldn't do the minor, but I took those quant finance courses that really helped me, not just in my job, but also, like, even as late as in my interview for MFE at Berkeley. A lot of those things that I actually was asked about were things that were actually taught, in these finance courses in BITS as well. Then to build your resume, to build your profile, try preparing for the CFA. Try doing at least the CFA level one. Any finance focused MBA or any financial engineering program, the least they expect you to do is to probably come with uh, you know an experience of a CFA level one or equivalent. So in the sense that if you can show that you don't have the CFA, but you actually come with the skills that a CFA level one would give you, even that is good. But lesser work experience generally is compensated by people doing the CFA level one at least. Some people do a lot more than that, but a level one is something that is pretty easily doable. And quant finance internships are not very common when it comes to companies coming down to campus for recruitment. At least they were not pretty common during my time. But in the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen a big spurt in trading shops, in investment management firms, and in mutual funds actually hiring for these kind of roles as well. And that's a pretty good signal. And I think that people should make use of that, um, because even in my program at Berkeley, I hardly saw Indian students over there who actually came with a quant finance background, because that is not very common in India. In the sense, by a background, I mean actually having that work experience. That is not very common, But you see people from different countries, they actually do that. So in India, like, there has been now an increasing trend of a lot of global investment management firms, global hedge funds, as well as prop trading shops, high frequency trading shops out there hiring for these kind of roles. And if you are interested, go all out and apply for them, because the selection rates over these in these companies is actually very selective, because again, it's a demand. There's an excess demand over there. There's too many people actually applying for them, and they do not have enough supply of jobs. So uh, you know they will be selective. So you should apply to every single one of them if you're actually interested. um, yeah, so that is my thing about quant finance. And I just wanted to keep it brief. So I think that is all that I'd like to speak about, and that is all I could prepare a presentation on in a very short span of time. But I'd love to take up any questions if they're there, and answer them.
Yeah. So now moving on to the question. Uh, so the question, what did UC Berkeley find interesting in your application? And like ideally, how should a resume look like?
So I would not say there's an ideal resume. So one of the things that I will be in good position to actually answer at this point of time is that I actually have done. I mean, like, I have actually been interviewing candidates for next year's batch of UC Berkeley as well as part of the admissions process. So I have seen quite a lot of people with different kind of resumes and completely different sorts of backgrounds as well. But when I interview for the admissions committee at UC Berkeley, or when I was interviewed, one thing that is important is that you should, or that's not just for Berkeley, for any program out there, that you should look at what is the program looking for. In the case of Berkeley, they are looking for people either with a strong finance background, which can either be through academics or work experience, or people with or people with a good computer science background, which is very thorough, and shown proficiency, proven proficiency in coding and stuff like that. or a very good or a very very thorough background in computer science or in AI and machine learning. So what basically stood out for me, and something that I very consciously worked on at that point of time, was that I always said that I want to end up in a strategy role in a company that uses production level machine learning and AI for consumer based products. Like that was my story, and um, that is what I'm doing right now as well. But like that is what ultimately what these colleges look at, and that is extremely important for you to understand that. See, for them, it is not just about admitting you in; it is more about placing you in a job as well. So if they think that this particular candidate, if he comes into our pool of the entire class, can we give this person a job? Can we like, do we know companies that will actually hire him in the US? Because ultimately that's what you want, right? And they know that, okay, in finance and quantitative finance, corporate finance, yes, there are a lot of companies coming to Berkeley. Data science, AI, ML, are a ton of companies coming. Not just hedge funds, trading stocks, but also tech companies, because it's in the Silicon Valley, right? So you got Uber, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all of them coming to hire over there. A lot of startups coming from Silicon Valley. Coding, yes, because I think that coding is one of the most in-demand skills in finance right now. People really underestimate that, and I think that if you are actually really proficient in coding, if you actually can show that you have done a lot of pretty good stuff on Code Chef, Lead Code, and all of that, I think you're in a good spot.
Okay. So in terms of extracurricular activities, is much weightage given to that, and what exactly?
I wouldn't say that they give a lot of stress on extracurricular activities. I don't think that, except for a like very very small mention about me being in the CSA, I actually wrote or said anything about that in the profile, because uh, the problem with extracurriculars is that I would have actually said a lot more about my extracurriculars, and I did in fact in my MBA applications, because that's where it matters more. At the MFE, it's more a skill-based program, so you need to show that what your skills lie in, and not as much about extracurricular. Extracurricular is just like a decorative thing over and above what you have already done. But yes, if you're doing if you're going to an MBA program, the relevant extracurricular skills really really matter. And as far as what skills matter, one major mistake that people do, which I've again seen in a lot of applications, is that people actually don't create a coherent story. You can't write that, you can't write that, okay, I did was in these 10 clubs and 20 departments, in like, and so I did a lot of stuff. Like that doesn't work. That doesn't cut it. I've seen people saying that, okay, I did arts and deco, and then I did DOSM, and I did def as well. So, like I have these 50 departments on my resume. It doesn't matter. But if you can say that, what, I am really interested in fundraising. So that is what I want to do. I'm interested in marketing. And this is where my interest actually started from, so I did like, marketing in my campus. And then actually I took up a marketing internship, and now I'm looking for marketing jobs. That's how you make a story, right? You don't say that I did these 20 things, so I'm pretty good. So you have to make a coherent story out of it. And I, like, I've seen people actually getting rejected because of the fact that they just like threw everything into the resume without making a story out of it.
Okay. So another question somebody asked was, what are the job opportunities for people doing?
I think that that's a nice question. I think that see, behavioral finance as such, just by itself, is like, is not really a job in India at this point of time, but it is always a combination. It is always a combination of that with something else. For me, it was behavioral finance and data science, right? So if somebody really wants, like, first, behavioral finance is not really a well-studied discipline in India as at this point of time. So even if somebody does it outside of India, want to come back just like I did, it is always in combination with something else. That it's behavioral finance and strategy, behavioral finance and data science. So generally, it's with data science only, because in India, with the huge amount of smartphone penetration, with the kind of data that you are getting for smartphones, with the kind of population that has access to mobile data now, it is a very good time, and a lot of people are doing that to actually analyze mobile data at scale and use that to offer services to people, whether it be insurance, loans, selling something, or anything like that. So that's why behavioral finance becomes important.
Okay, and finally, the last question is, how exactly did you build your startup, and what does it?
So I would say that it's not really my startup. Even though I joined as probably one of the first 10 people in the company, but and now it's like at 250 plus and all of that. But yeah, it's definitely a hard process. I think that finance and fintech in India is a highly regulated environment. So with the RBI and the government having very strict laws around everything and anything that you do, so you have to be very careful about that. At the end of the day, you are dealing with personal financial data of people. um, you know like I have to be very careful about infrastructure security, for example, because any kind of breach would probably mean that people's personal Aadhaar card numbers might just get exposed, right? Um, so that becomes a very crucial aspect. So there are a lot of things about building financial services companies in India. Being very careful about compliance and regulation is one thing. Number two is actually hiring the right people. I think there's a huge amount of talent in India, but there's also a lot of talent that is not possibly, probably fit for your role, and you'll learn only the hard way. I've learned by hiring the wrong people that who the right people for the company might be. So, and that is always a journey for everyone, right? So that is one thing. Then the third thing is about actually delivering, right? Because then you have a lot of investors, a lot of stakeholders who want something out of you, and they always want 10% more than what you actually know you can realistically deliver. Right? So like being very bang on with your forecasts about how much you can possibly do, how much business you can possibly do, uh, is also very important. And the lastly and the most important thing that I've realized is the fact that uh, you know it's a very good time in India to do AI and machine learning from a consumer finance perspective, but it's extremely hard to actually build products that actually use AI and ML at a production level. It's extremely hard to do that because people don't believe that. Like in my case, if it is about using AI and ML to give out loans, somebody in HDFC Bank would be like, I don't believe this. Like, how can you use smartphone data of somebody and tell him whether he can get a loan or not? Like, that doesn't work, right? So, and it's very hard to convince people about that. And there's obviously a barrier that you have to cross. But once that works, things work out pretty well for you. But that initial trust gap takes a bit of time.
Okay, so one question has come in the chat box. Uh, they're asking, does online certification, for example, Coursera, help you with the interview process?
It does. I think that for in the case of Berkeley, what was done for me, and I do for other people as well, that I tell them that these are the things that, so as I said, right, like uh, you have to be good either in finance or coding or AI and ML, and generally people are good with either at most one or two of these things. So obviously by the time you actually go to Berkeley, they expect you to actually do the other things as well. And by that I mean that for say the class entering Berkeley in March 2021, the admissions actually start from January 2020. So, and you apply in January 2020, you get an admit by March. So you have 1 year to actually prepare. And they actually tell you about what to prepare, and that whatever they tell you to prepare, you do that via Coursera courses only. So they are fine with that. And in fact, you can always use Coursera courses to say that you are interested in something, but at the same time, you cannot say that your skill sets in a particular domain have only come through Coursera, because everybody knows that the answers to any particular course are all available online, and it's very easy to get a certificate, right? So you can't just say that, oh, I'm interested in finance because I've done these four finance courses on Coursera. Like that wouldn't work.
Okay. One more question has now come up again. So it is, what will be the implications of the pandemic on the admission process of universities and their curriculum?
No, that's again a very good question. I think that to give a very straightforward answer, uh, I would say that I do see a lot of people who got admitted this year in MBA programs deferring the admits to next year. So which is like probably say 30% of classes in MBA schools that got admitted this year deferred the admits to next year. Besides the fact that there are a lot of people also applying for MBAs, because in general worldwide, because people are out of jobs and they think that an MBA will cushion them for 2 years. And when they actually come out and graduate, the market would be much better and the pandemic would have gone, and then they could easily get a job. And then there's obviously the regular course of applications coming in. So I think that for next year, again, that's what I think, that there is going to be a big spurt in the applications coming for the August 2021 class, unfortunately, because there are a lot of you got the deferred guys, you got people who actually lost jobs and now applying for MBAs even though they did not plan to do that, and you obviously got the normal MBA applicants as well. So that definitely is the short term effect that I see on the MBA applications.
Okay. So yeah, coming to the end of the talk, this was a very informative and fruitful talk, and we would like to you, sir, for taking our time and making today's talk possible.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ritik. It was great coming in. I do see some more questions. What I'd recommend people is that feel free to connect on my LinkedIn, and I'd love to help you guys. We can probably chat over text as well after that. Always a pleasure to help out people from BITS, and kind of help them out wherever I can. So thanks a lot, guys. It's always great connecting with the class, and always happy to help out. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Udik. And sorry for some problems in the beginning. So
So I think that was from our end. Sorry about that.
all right, no worries. So thanks.